Where Demons Hide, Volume 1, The Power of Creation. Written and narrated by B.T. O'Carroll. Prologue. Finn Rourke, your time has drawn to a close, and my patience has expired. Surely you do not fear your probatus. His voice echoed from all corners of the dimly lit subway landing, my hands trembling as I felt the blood drip from my fingers. I think I may have an allergy to bullets. I should really see somebody about that. If I had a few more months to train, I would have figured out how to heal myself. I leaned against the cool cement pillar, crouching down to make myself as small as possible. Tiffany leaned against me, shaking with fear. At least I assumed it was fear. Maybe she had too much caffeine this morning. Yeah, that's probably it. Okay, Rourke, you old dog, I whispered to myself. Time to be more. Turning to Tiffany, I whispered, the next train is due in 2 minutes. I'll put out the lights. When it pulls up to the platform, you jump through the doors and get off at the next stop. Head back to the flat. I'll meet you there in the morning. Got it? Tiffany glared at me through the bloodshot eyes and tear-smeared makeup. At least she was cutting back on the goth look. What a mess that would have been. I told you before. We stay together. No exceptions, her voice rising slightly. This is no time to argue. You have much more to lose than I do. Don't worry, Tiff. No matter what happens, I won't forget you. The rumble of a train could be heard approaching the platform. Yes, you will, she whispered. I clutched her hand and felt a hollowness form inside me. I knew she was right. No one restarts with any memories. The lights from the train lit the wall opposite us and cast a wide shadow from the pillar and screeched to a stop. It's time. With Tiffany's hand in mine, I took a deep breath, focused my will, and felt the power start to build. Pop, pop, pop. One by one, the light bulbs on the platform started to burst. Some panicked shouts came from the other end of the large room. But it wasn't the sound I was listening for. I needed the swoosh of the doors opening. No point giving away our location till we had someplace to run. I dared a peek around the edge of the pillar to see the status of the train. With the lights still on in the train, the doors were plainly visible, along with a few Saturday riders who looked like they had no place to go. A bell rang signaling the train's imminent departure, usually followed by the sounds of the doors closing, but the door still hadn't opened. Come on, it's now or never, I yelled and yanked Tiffany to her feet. We got to the door closest to us and tried to pry it open. Futile. We ran to the next car and tried the next door. I dug my fingers into the door crease and pulled. A screaming pain streaked through my bicep as I felt the muscle tissue tear further and fresh blood pour out of the hole. Tiffany started banging on the glass, trying to wake up the lonely passenger who could pull the door release. Down the length of the train, a team of thugs started running toward us, following the sound of the commotion. The light from the train gave their half-lit profiles an extra element of unsettling calamity as they moved swiftly like a pack of seasoned wolves in leather trench coats. I looked back at the doors and almost fell over as they suddenly sprang open. The train's lonely sleeping delegate was standing on the other side. I reached to pull Tiffany into the open door, and my hand grabbed empty air. Spinning to my right where she had been banging on the glass, I saw that she was backing away from the open doors, her face lit with the ghostly light of the passenger car. As if moving in slow motion, I looked back at the person who opened the door. Stepping off the train and into my personal bubble was a perfectly tailored suit and the best shoes money could buy. The smirk on his face both enraged me and drained me at the same time. Hopelessness can be painful, even more painful than a bullet hole. Now, Mr. Rourke, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you were thinking you could avoid your destiny. Inceptus interim, Mr. Rourke, time to restart. His voice smooth as always, totally calm. And Tiffany, my dear, you weren't crossing me, were you? After all I've done for you. I would hate for you and I to part ways on less than amicable terms. As you know, that would only hurt you, not me. The look on Tiffany's face was stone, cold, passive. Of course not, she replied with no emotion. You know me better than that, Anon. As promised, I delivered him, alive, ready to make a deal. I told you he was worth trying to turn. His potential is higher than any I've brought you thus far. Killing him would have been a waste. In and far too easy to be interesting anyway. Uh-oh. This is why I have trust issues with women. The music from the train punctuated the silence, almost like an overly dramatic Tarantino movie, irony at its best. The song was Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. At that, she gave that half-mouthed smirk and turned away. The light from the train on her face made it look like her eyes were starting to water. I felt the hopelessness of the moment sink in, and my breathing became heavy. My eyes followed her as she just walked away from me toward the stairs. Not another word. Water blurred my vision as my eyes filled with tears and the full weight of the betrayal sank in. The hooked-nosed thug, Chacho, wasn't it? Stepped in my line of vision with a gun raised at my head. Now what did I ever do to him? The smooth voice behind me said in a barely audible tone, "Ah, my dear, I'm afraid it just isn't that easy." At that, Chacho smiled at me, showing off his brown teeth. Slowly he turned and pointed the gun at the back of Tiffany, still walking away. He pulled the trigger. Cold, no, ice, poured from my skin as the music of the train filled my consciousness and reverberated inside my skull. Time slowed almost to a stop as my eyes slammed shut, squeezing tears down my cheeks, which instantly froze in place. My hands instinctively shot out in front of me with fingers spread wide. Like a dream, I watched the power of my concentrated will pour from between my hands and launch toward Tiffany, going right through Chacho like he wasn't even there. How far was she? 20 feet? Maybe 30? No one can move a bullet at more than 20 feet, I remembered. I pushed the sphere of my will toward Tiffany and finally caught up with the bullet about 6 inches before it was to smash into the back of her skull. On the upside, if this failed, she wouldn't feel a thing. Even with time moving so slowly, a .45 caliber bullet moves much faster than I would have guessed. The music grew louder and louder till it was almost deafening. I compressed the sphere of my will around the bullet and pulled.